All right, at this juncture, we should have had our eyelids done. We had them done the last class. They should be shaped up. And we really want to make sure at this point that we don't mess any of this stuff up. So just be careful around the work that you've already done, because we don't really want to have to get back in there and touch things up. Now we're going to build eyebrows over this. We're going to build cheeks in here. But before we do all that stuff, we're going to get into making the mouth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bowl of clay, a decent size, again about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit larger. And this time what I'm going to do is going to be working on creating a base for the mouth. Now the base for the mouth will kind of be similar to what we practiced before. Well, we put two pieces together, and if you did this correctly, you should have a decent amount of clay down below the eyes. If your clay on the sort of Robin's mask part is a little bit short, well then make sure that you add a little bit more. But what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to kind of spread out a nice evenly made thin piece of clay, and this is just going to be my base. Doesn't need to be much thicker than 2/4 or so, but you want to kind of keep it all the same thickness all the way through. I'm going to place that down over here, and really what I want to see is that it's covering up where the mouth would be. If it's a little bit small, stretch it out to make it a little bit bigger. If it's a little too thin, well, just add more clay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press that in. I'm going to create myself a little area to work on and to add the other elements of the mouth on. And how am I going to do that? I'm just going to kind of blend that piece into the last piece. This is an important part of the things that we do. Even though what I'm working on right now is going to get covered up later on with more clay and more pieces and things like that, I still want to make it look as if it is seamlessly attached to the other piece of clay. And why do I want to do that? Because when you leave those little cracks and those little spaces and those little creases and folds, those are the areas that if we bake this in the oven, they tend to break apart. So if we blend them in together like what you just seen I've done over here, that'll end up creating something that's a lot more sturdy and stable. Now I'm going to press the rest of this clay down over the face. It's okay if there's still areas that aren't covered around the edges. We can cover those up later, but you want to consider that basically all the way down to what would be the chin, that area should be relatively covered. All right. Now we're going to be creating the face. We're going to be creating, it's not going to be like the most perfect, you know, a human face. It's going to be a little bit more childlike because the way we're going to do the features. It's going to have big eyes. It's going to have a small mouth. It's going to have a small nose. So we want to keep that in mind when we're working, but we do want to leave space for things. So the way we're going to go about this at this point is we're going to look for our quarter. Hook me up. I'll borrow yours just for a second. We're going to get our quarter. I'm going to use our quarter as a spacer for right now. We're going to place that quarter right over here so you can see the top part of that quarter is really at the space between the eyes. And we want to kind of have it right there, and that's going to give me an idea of where I want to consider making the mouth. So I'm going to look at where that quarter is. That's going to be my space for my nose. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little line over here to kind of indicate where the mouth is going to be. That line that I make, I want to make sure that it's pretty much the width of a quarter, at least the width of the quarter. We don't want to make it too wide. We also want to make sure that the quarter fits right where I put it, and then you have a little bit more space underneath it. So you could kind of judge on your own where you want to put it, but that's a good place as far as laying it out how it should go. Now, when we worked before, we could do a couple different things. I showed you how to make a mouth with teeth and everything else like that. For this one, for the first one we're going to do, I'm going to work with it a little bit, sort of just closed and make it just a little easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my clay, and I'm going to start squeezing out a piece, molding a piece. This is going to be the upper lip. Now, this is a piece that I want to kind of keep not too thin, but I also want to make sure that it's wide enough to cover the whole area. So it should be enough that it starts to get a little bit wider than the pupils of the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on that piece. Again, that piece is going to be a little bit thicker. And it's going to be longer this way. I want to kind of keep it as symmetrical as we can to make sure that it fits nicely in there. Right now it kind of looks like a Pokemon or something like that, but that's fine. We're going to be making this without the nose for the time being. Now, I want to make sure, again, the thickness of this is that it's a little bit thicker, a little bit wider than where the pupils of the eyes are. And really on the outside edges over here, I'm just going to make it just a little thinner. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to sculpt the lip itself. I've got the bottom section over here that's sort of rounded already. I want to keep it relatively round. And then just like we did before, just kind of want to find the center of this thing and pinch a little bit with our fingers. By pinching a little bit with our fingers, we're going to start making that indent that represents that middle part of the lip, that little bump. All right. We want to make sure that that's pretty much even on both sides. And we can kind of take our fingers and sort of round that off a little bit more. So you can see what it looks from this angle. You can see what it looks like from this angle. And then again, I could do sort of a rough fitting right over here on where it's going to fit on the face. Now before I place that, what I want to do is I want to kind of try to find that middle part where I can make a little bit of a divot. I'm going to use my toothpick. You can see how I'm laying my toothpick in and pressing it in very gently and rolling it back and forth, and then use my finger to sort of smooth out that little indent. That's going to be that split in the upper lip. Can kind of help smooth that out a little bit before, again, we place this. But this should be all a review for you guys, for those of you after you've done the mouth. Remember, we've got our lip and we've got the split underneath it. We're going to kind of press a little bit, kind of bring that out a little bit, but that's what we're looking at. And right now we want to kind of place that on our mouth. It is going to look weird. He doesn't have a nose, so what we're going to be seeing here, we're going to be seeing a very weird duck-like looking character. I'm going to roughly place it. You can see the line that I created for the mouth. That's where I'm going to put the lip down to. That part of the lip should be right above that little line that I created before. And then this is going to get smoothed out towards the sides. I'm slowly blending that in to my face. Start blending these parts in to the lower lids. Careful not to mess up your eyes. And continue to sort of work that in until those seams underneath sort of go away. And just lightly going over them until they sort of become one. And you no longer see the fold or the crack. And it sort of works. We're going to fill this area in later on with cheeks, which is fine. But for right now, we want to kind of just work that in. Taking a look to keep things symmetrical. Upper lip, have it sort of smoothed out towards the sides into the parts that we already had. You can see it sticks out a little bit, which is perfectly fine. That's what we want. We got that nice little bump over here, and you can always do a little bit of adjusting and playing around with it once you have it sort of attached onto the face. All right, now what we want to do is we want to start working on that lower lip. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start taking a little piece of clay and we're going to start rolling it around. You're going to have a lot more clay than you need. And this is going to be a little bit of a judgment call. So I've rolled it out into that sort of round piece. I want to kind of take a look at it. I want that lower lip to sort of bulge out a little bit, all right? And I don't need it to be super skinny. And I won't need it to be long enough that it goes all the way through. So you got a little sort of frog face. We're going to add a little bit more material down here for his chin before we get going over there. So first things first, we kind of have just a rough fitting of that lip. We got a sort of frog looking kind of face that's going on. Now we want to kind of see that we have a piece of clay. Again, should be about 2/4 in width. You can always cut it down to make it smaller. You don't want to make it super thin. You want to take a look, and when you put it together, you want to see that it is thick enough that it bulges out almost as much as that top lip does. All right, so that sticks out over there. I'm going to put that to the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take another bowl of clay. And this bowl of clay, yes, it will be a little bit larger than the regular bowls that you've been using. You can add just a little bit more clay. What we're going to do is we're going to sort of fashion a chin onto this figure. I'm going to start by adding that bowl onto the bottom of the face and smoothing it out. Into our character. Now, how big the chin needs to be is going to be kind of up to you. But what we want to do, and we can always add more material on it, is we want to kind of start placing that lip in place and kind of seeing that I have a little bit of chin underneath it. Now, if you want to make the chin a little bit bigger, you can add a little bit more clay to it. Squeezing out a little piece of clay, adding it in, and just building it onto that. For right now, I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to continue to sort of blend that in to that base piece underneath. And I'm going to be careful not to sort of smooth out any of these areas. I'll rough fit it. Looks like I've got a little bit of a chin. Kind of works for me. And we'll smooth it out. Looking to make sure that it looks symmetrical to me, that it's not like lopsided on one side or the other, to the best of my abilities. Now I'm going to try to take my lip and attach it. Before I attach the lip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pinch the edges of this thing, and I make this little piece that I made the lip, I'll make it a little thinner on the outside edges, just a little bit skinnier on the outside edges. Then I'm going to see how it fits over here. I'll go ahead and then on the bottom of this thing, pinch it just a little bit, just like we did before. This is really the exact same way that we built the mouth before. So for all of you who did the original mouth, that's what we have. So it's a little thinner here, round on the top, pinched at the bottom. You can see it from all different angles. I'm going to rough fit it onto the mouth. Kind of place it, try to see how it fits and how it looks. You can have it pushed right up to the upper lip. You can leave a little gap in there. That's totally fine. Once we have it where it looks like you think you like it and it looks like it fits, try to get in there. Just try to pinch a little bit of the bottom of it and blend that into the chin that we just created. Careful not to flatten out that lower lip. Go ahead and connect it in the center over here and sort of smooth it out into that chin. We're going to look at the bump in the middle of the lip and the little increase over here. We're going to go out to around here. Where should I do this? Well, my fingers should kind of line up wherever the pupils are or wherever the middle of those eyes should be. Around there is where we're going to connect this mouth together. I'm going to kind of pinch that clay together. And we're going to start smoothing out that extra clay. Into the face. Okay. Be careful not to sort of wreck the edges or the corners of the mouth. And always push them up a little bit. Blend all of that clay together, especially on the lower lip. It shouldn't look like you can see the seams between one piece of clay and the other. All right, and there we have now your eyes and your mouth. You can see the chin that I've created is sort of coming off the bottom of the foil. That's totally fine. You can make yours pop out a little bit more or a little bit less. From here, the next step for us is we're going to be starting to add a nose. Once we've added the nose, we're going to kind of add a little bit more, I guess, mass to the cheeks, add a little bit more to the chin, and then we're going to worry about finishing off the face and everything else there. But we're slowly getting close to the end over here. Again, try to make everything as symmetrical as possible, both sides even. Make sure that you've left at least a quarter and a little bit more down here for the mouth. So if you're looking at this thing, if you could put a quarter where the top of the quarter reaches the eyes, if your mouth is up here somewhere, well, it's too high up. We got to move it down. We got to make some place for the nose. After that, there'll be a little detail work that we do to it as well. But if you've gotten this far by the end of the week, you're doing a very good job. All right, guys, so that was adding the mouth. As usual, I'm going to take multiple pictures of my work from multiple different angles. So when you submit this, I have the ability to actually see a little bit more three-dimensionally of the work that you've made. Again, don't worry about not being able to bring the clay all the way to the ends over here. We'll use whatever leftover clay we have to do that. But you do need to send me pictures of this thing from multiple different angles. That way I can see what you did or how I can help you.